Hello and welcome to On the Right Track Career Stories, a video series and podcast about real people, their real careers, and real lives. I'm Jane Christopher, your host, and today I'm talking to Andrea Cook. She's an advertising executive, and she's got some amazing experience and insights to share with us. So Andrea, thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
Great, thank you for having me.
Okay, let's get right to it. What do you do for a living?
I run a global ad agency.
Okay, and talk to us about what's involved in that work.
Well, people, often take, I think, from Mad Men or other TV shows what advertising is all about, and I think there's some confusion around marketing and advertising. So, marketing is what happens on a brand side. So, a brand like Kellogg or Unilever or Ford, the team that does the advertising inside that group, amongst other things, will do the advertising. An ad agency is a business that's set up specifically to work on the advertising for those marketers, often in partnership with those marketers. And that's what we do. How I got here is I actually studied I'm an economist by training. I thought I was going to be a trader. Spent a good couple summers and maybe 2 weeks on the trading floor, and then hated it with a passion, and realized that actually a different passion that I had was back that I learned in grade 10 was about advertising. And so knew nothing about it, didn't really know anyone in it, and sought an internship and then have stayed in it. I'm coming up on 20 plus years now in the advertising world.
Okay, so what did you do your university education in? Economics?
In economics.
Okay.
Right.
And was it a Bachelor of Arts or a commerce degree?
No, Bachelor of Arts.
Okay. And then what happened after that?
Into an internship, and then you just worked my way up from the very bottom floor all the way up to the top.
Okay, and the first place of work, not the trading floor, your first advertising experience, was that a big firm, a small firm? What did it look like?
It was a multinational, fairly big firm. It, was one of the top actually creative performing. So agencies are often evaluated on their creative performance, and there's different award shows around the world. We have our own Cannes festival, similar to the one you see for film. It's just for advertising awards. And so this was a very top awarded creative organization. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, some of the stuff you see on TV is real. There's a lot of youth and a lot of fun to do with advertising. It's a dynamic, high energy type of business.
Okay, and have you been at the same firm for your whole career?
Oh, no. One thing in advertising is you do tend to move around. So you can imagine certain firms have certain client partnerships. So as I mentioned, those brands before. So you might, in one agency, work on one or two pieces of business. So you work on Ford and Unilever. And sometimes there's opportunities to move between clients inside an agency, but oftentimes to really broaden your base of capabilities, you'll move between agencies. Often people move up that way. You don't tend to, I don't know really too many people at all who've stayed in the same agency through their career.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Okay, so talk to us. You're at the top of your field right now. What type of work do you do on a weekly basis?
So it's a lot of team management at this point. Let me talk about the structure of agencies, though, because I think that's often misconstrued in TV shows. Everybody just presents creative campaigns, and that's kind of the extent of what I think people think advertising is. Right? Am I right? Yeah, that's probably what you yeah. There tends to be different divisions within an agency. So one is a strategy group, and those are the people who really sort of take the opportunities that are out there, analyze the data, come up with a brief or a synthesis of the problem or issue, and sort of the starting place of the creative idea. Then there's the creative people, and so those tend to fall into camps: writers and art directors, so people who do the pictures, people who do the writing. And there's other, there's designers and things that fall in that group, but that's sort of a generalization of the creative department. And then there's account service people. So those are the folks who manage this stuff manage the clients, manage the management of the budgets, and sort of coordinate and corral the rest of the agency towards deadlines and finished product. Then there's producers. So sometimes those people fall in a technical capacity, like a project manager. And some people can follow like more of a TV. If you think about TV commercials, there's like directors and producers that sit behind a TV commercial like there is behind a movie. What am I missing? And then there's typical administration, sort of finance departments and so on. Um, and
Okay.
so my day is more now out of the realm of those and into kind of overall leadership around that. So I deal with, escalation of issues, a lot of the P&Ls and sort of the financial parts of the business, and then just sort of team issues, and then overall visioning, lots of meetings, lots of phone
Yeah.
calls. Yeah.
Okay, so when you started out, what part of the agency were you in?
So I started out on the account service side, so managing the clients and the projects through. And it's good. I think it's a good way to start in advertising. And a lot of people start there and move into other passions. And a lot of people um, hit the top from different places in the spectrum. So there's creative CEOs that started as creatives. There's CEOs who started as strategists. A lot of them come up through the account service side.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot of variety within the business. Um, could you talk a little bit about what it's like when you're starting out? Some of the young people who are at your firm, I don't know if you have to choose one area. What are their hours like? What's their lifestyle like?
There's a lot more regulations today than there used to be back in my day, where internships were free and you were just sort of, a slave to the work. And I mean, I loved it. I loved getting into it and really picking it apart. I think you can come in anywhere. You can intern in any part of the business. As I said, it's much more highly regulated now. I think the people that do well are the people who buckle down and really are curious and push. I often say you can teach any of the skills that I talked about. You can teach how to lead an account. You can teach how to draw pictures. But that spark, really caring about the business and really wanting to get in and get dirty on it, is something I know I look for, and isn't everywhere.
Mhm.
And so the hours can be grueling. We do a lot of pitching, as you do see in the movies and on TV shows. And when pitches are afoot, they're often condensed timelines and they're often on top of one another. And so those days can get pretty long. But it's, if you have the right leadership and you're in the right agency, I think there's a real commitment to finding that balance. And that's, I have 3 children of my own. I've had children through even, as recently as 5 years ago. So in senior leadership positions, and I've managed to find a balance, but balance is an active word. It
Yeah,
changes every, yeah.
it sure does. Okay, what's your favorite thing about your work?
Lots of things. As I said, it's very fun, very dynamic. I love that I do something different every day. So you learn, I mean, I've been in a Frito factory to see how they make it cheesy. I have tasted alcohol before it's hit the street to, taste test. I have driven fancy BMWs with them as a client. You sort of, every day is a different day. And it's kind of neat to understand the inner workings of lots of different industries, and it changes all the time. So I love that.
Mhm. Is there anything that surprised you about advertising?
What's lovely things, like people come from all walks of life. I know a guy who was a trained circus performer who became a creative guy. So you really get a mishmash of people. It's kind of nice that way. I think on a bad note, I'm surprised how much sort of gender and racial bias still exists in the industry even today. Um, but is that everywhere? I don't know. Still exists a little bit in advertising for sure.
Okay. Now, for young people wanting to get in the business, if they love, what they see on TV and listening to what you're saying, if that tweaks their interest, what would you recommend they do? Do they have to have a university education? If they go into it, is there one better major than another?
No, I mean, really, no. There,
Okay.
I suppose on the art side, there are schools like OCAD where we look for a lot of students from. If you're going to be a writer, it's pretty hard to come in, or a creative person at all. It's pretty hard to come in, I think, without a passion for that specific thing. To teach someone how to, use, specific software for design, or to how to, really write, I think would be a little harder. So we do tend to take students like that through creative programs. But honestly, everything else, people fall into advertising from all over the place. And I think that's what makes us great.
So getting into the firm with an internship and some sort of background in an area they've been passionate about and successful in, do a good job in the internship, and then take it from there.
Yep, there are also a lot of college programs. So for kids who maybe don't want to, we have one guy who's probably one of the smartest strategists. I always say I'm going to work for him one day. And we found him as a little peanut and brought him in and brought him up. And he uh, is so intelligent. And he made the selection not to go to university because he wanted to fast track his career. And I think he graduated right from high school and went into maybe a year or two of college specific to advertising or
Yeah.
communication.
Okay.
And then launched into advertising, and he will run an agency. I have no doubt whatsoever. And that didn't require a university education, but he is passionate about what he does, and he is a dedicated, committed guy with a really really quick brain. And I don't think he knew necessarily advertising was going to be the thing for him, but as he kind of got through the end stages of university or of high school and into college options of how he could get into a real career and start his life, I think it appeared, and he's done amazingly well. So
That's a great tip. Okay, so what would you recommend for young people? What are some skills for today, the real world? What do you recommend they, hone in on, try to develop?
I think if you can get some office, if you want to get into advertising, get some office experience, basic stuff, to work in an office and get some experience there is valuable. I think one of the things that everyone should do is be very self-aware, understand where your strengths and weaknesses lie. We all have things we need to work on, and those evolve over your growth. As a leader, I think being open and in tune to feedback, finding mentors, having interviews with people. A lot of people in my business do coffee interviews all the time, just to help inspire people into our business. I would reach out and do things like that. Um, those are probably the biggies.
Okay. Now, what would you tell your younger self?
You come upon doubters, I think, in any business. I've always had an MO for honesty, transparency. And you have people, I think, who steer you off the things that gutturally are the right thing to do. And I think I wouldn't have wasted so much time worrying about what other people thought in that way, and sort of stuck to my guns and my instincts on that.
I love it. So good. Okay, one last question, Andrea. Thank you for your time. If you weren't in advertising, what would you be doing?
Do I have all kinds of money?
You can do anything you want. The sky's the limit.
I would definitely give back. I think I have a real passion for underprivileged youth, and I think I would probably do that, or adopt 10 children from all over the world and hang out and have a lot of fun.
That sounds amazing. This has been a really interesting conversation. Thanks so much for sharing the inside scoop on the advertising business and how you got where you are. And I know that our viewers really appreciate it. I do. Very interesting stories today. Thanks, Andrea.
No problem. We'll see you out there.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. If you liked what you saw, give us a like, and even better, subscribe. Hope to see you soon.